Hello friends, JJ here. It is September 11th, 2019, and I am still in Montreal, just hanging out in bed here, watching some interesting news on the television. We're getting some live shots here of the Governor General's mansion, and the news is that Prime Minister Trudeau is about to officially dissolve the Parliament. Oh look, here he comes now.
Merci d'être ici avec nous ce matin à Rideau Hall.
Thank you for being with us this morning at Rideau Hall. A few moments ago, I met Her Excellency, the Governor General, who accepted my request to dissolve Parliament.
And what this means is that the 2019 Canadian election campaign is officially upon us.
Canadians will head to the polls on October 21st.
Over the next couple of weeks, I will make a few videos about the Canadian election campaign, talking about it as it unfolds in real time, and we'll focus on some of the traditions and customs of Canadian politics in particular, because I know you guys are very interested in that sort of thing. So after the Prime Minister and the Governor General dissolve the Parliament, all 338 seats are suddenly declared empty and up for grabs. This means that a Canadian general election is actually 338 separate elections, all held at the same time, as political parties across the country scramble to win as many of those seats as they can. Win the most seats, and the head of your party becomes Prime Minister. Canada has a geographic-based parliament, which means that every parliamentary seat represents a geographic district of roughly equal population. We also use a plurality-based electoral system, in which you win a seat by winning the most votes in your district, even if that's not an outright majority. Now, one of the interesting things about getting older is that I am now at the age where many of my politically minded friends are actually running for office. And now that we're officially in campaign mode, I thought it might be fun to pay some of them a visit, show you guys a bit of the unglamorous reality of what running for Parliament is actually like. This evening, I thought we would start with my friend Michael Forian, who's running right here in Montreal, conveniently enough. Michael is a conservative, and Montreal is not exactly conservative-friendly territory. In the last election, the party only won a measly 12% of the vote here, so Michael's taking a bit of a gamble. So here's Michael's office here. Because he's running a pretty threadbare campaign at the moment, he's actually sharing an office with another conservative candidate, David Torgeman. So here we are at the campaign office. I feel like this is a relatively typical campaign office for a local candidate in a Canadian election. This one is in a former bank. I feel like you tend to see a lot of campaign offices in like former restaurants or former corner stores or things like that. Basically, the main criteria is just finding a big open indoor space that no one else is using. These are, generally speaking, not particularly aesthetically pleasing places. You got an imposing front desk and a map of the district and box upon box of these little flyer things, maybe some promotional t-shirts, some junk food for the volunteers, a sad little break room. Today this space is going to be hosting two very typical campaign office events, an EDA meeting and some sign making. So EDA stands for Electoral District Association, and it's basically the thing that manages the affairs of a Canadian political party at the lowest level. Every electoral district in Canada has its own EDA, and they're basically run by the most hardcore partisan people who live there. In theory, the EDA is supposed to be involved in everything from candidate recruitment to hosting fundraisers, but it really varies a lot from district to district. Tonight's EDA meeting was mostly just talking about budget stuff relating to the election campaign. Sign making, however, now that's interesting. So tell us how the election signs work, Michael.
Your typical yard sign, which would be significantly smaller, well, say half the size of this, you just plant it into the ground. These, here in Quebec, first of all, we have our face on our signs. And we would typically just wrap this around a utility pole, some sort of lamppost, anything that we can hook it around. We would take a tie wrap, a zip tie, I don't know what you call it, and you would just tie it around like that, and then you would close the end here. Of course, us being in Quebec, whatever we do is a lot more complicated than the rest of Canada, so this is very Quebecois.
Now let's take a closer look at some of those signs. Since Michael is a conservative, all of his signs are blue, because in Canada the parties are all color-coded. And then just for further clarification, you got the party's name and logo down here, and the name of his electoral district here. And because this is Quebec, you can see we have both French and English. Okay, so it's now the next day, and you can see that Michael's little worker bees have been busy because his signs are all over Montreal now. But look, his Liberal opponent has signs up too. I went into the riding next door just so you could see some NDP and Bloc Québécois signs too. And oh look, here's a poster of Prime Minister Trudeau himself. Justin Trudeau is still relatively popular out here in Quebec, so it makes sense that they'd be running big posters like this of him. I don't think you'd see many posters like this in Alberta though. All right, so now we are going to head back to British Columbia and meet another friend of mine who is running for Parliament way on the other end of the country. My friend Nicholas Inslee, running in the obscure Vancouver suburb of Coquitlam. Nick is also a Conservative, but his district is way more competitive than Michael's. Last time the Conservatives only lost by under 2,000 votes, so let's see how his campaign office compares. His office is actually based out of this building here, in one of those trendy co-working spaces, but you can see it's basically the same setup: maps, signs, flyers, piles of t-shirts, junk food. A little bit prettier though. Okay, so here I am with my friend Nicholas Inslee, the local Conservative candidate here.
Hey JJ, how you doing today?
Oh, not too bad. How are you?
Well, thank you.
So I wanted to know how you wound up here, because I know, we go back. I know that you've been politically active for a long time. You were politically active in college and all the rest of it. So just tell me a little bit about like the genesis of your political career, your political involvement, how you became,
or at least
to
at
this
this point,
position.
aspiring political career, I
Yes,
suppose.
yes.
Yeah. No, so I mean, it started out like you said, like when we were out in university, it was something which I was drawn to, wanted to get involved, and the nice part about politics is you can always do more and more, right? So started door knocking on campaigns, phoning on campaigns, getting more involved, taking on bigger roles. But it came to a point where I sort of felt the desire to put my own name on the ballot. I mean, our party's got a really great process when it comes to having open and transparent nominations. So like it's all membership driven. The local EDA runs a process with consultation with party headquarters to find and field candidates during a nomination process. Then our members vote on who will represent them in the upcoming election.
So it was a competitive nomination contest.
I did have I had another competitor who ran against me, and we did very well. We had a good vote of confidence from the membership, but we run competitive nominations in our party.
Like how many people voted?
I want to say it was about 300 or so people.
And that all takes place in one night?
Yeah, one evening. You get up, you give your pitch, you tell people why they should vote for you as opposed to someone else. These things are more cordial, I'd say, for the most part.
Yeah.
In our case, it certainly was. It was a very friendly process. And then the membership has their say. Like,
is the process of recruiting members to the party for the purpose of winning a nomination, is it similar to what you're doing now in terms of just getting voters in general?
It's different because it's you've got to actually get people to make a financial commitment, right?
That's
so
right.
Our party requires you to have to buy your membership at $15 per year. And that's for some people that's a barrier, right? Like they're willing to say they're going to vote for you, they're willing to say they're going to support you. But some people don't want to be associated that strongly with a particular party, right? And obviously there's a financial cost to it, right? You're signing up a family of, because after you're 14, you can sign up.
Oh, really?
So you can sign up a family of, let's say you had a family of 5 people. That's it's not a huge amount of money, but like it's $75.
A lot of your friends?
This stuff does tend to be like friends, neighbors, associates, right?
Did you meet with Scheer immediately after that? When was your first meeting with him?
So our first meeting with Scheer was kind of it was great. We had him out in our riding about, I want to say, 6 days after we won the nomination.
Oh, really?
He was outdoor knocking with us.
How often do you talk to him?
I wouldn't say that we have frequent contact. Obviously we have a lot of contact with like the leader's office and party headquarters.
Yeah.
Well, actually, it's primarily party headquarters because we're going into the election and such.
To what extent is this campaign, of your campaign here, is it locally funded versus funded by the national office?
It's almost entirely funded locally. So like we will definitely get some support from national party office, and it's not clear cut as far as like how that works, because obviously like national party office will do everything from like buying regional ads and stuff like that, right?
Yeah.
So like if you're hearing something on CKNW, it's not me who bought it or our campaign that bought it, but it'll have been paid for probably by national.
Yeah.
But it's obviously benefiting us. Funding rules in Canada are actually extremely strict.
Yeah.
So donors can only give $1,600 per person. It has to be personal check or credit card. Can't come from a business. There's significant limits on donations in kind and like a lot of paperwork I think associated with that sort of stuff. I don't have all the particulars on this because that's not really my job, and I would probably screw it up if I'm being honest.
Yeah.
But it's there's some very particular rules that we have to follow around that. For our area, I want to say it's about $115,000 that each campaign can spend.
Well, thanks so much, Nicholas, for explaining some of the mechanics of running for office. I think it's very helpful.
Oh, it's a lot of fun. Thanks for coming by, JJ.
Thank you. And now Nicholas is doing some campaigning, so I've tagged along for that. Him and his posse are going to do what they call canvassing, which is basically when you just go door to door talking to people and handing them flyers. All right, Ben, so pretend I'm the person who answers the door. What do you do?
Hi, my name is Benjamin. I'm here door knocking on behalf of Nicholas Inslee. He's your local Conservative candidate. Quite simply, he's a young father with a 2-year-old daughter. He's running for office because he wants to lower taxes and make life more affordable.
And what do people usually say in response?
Well, the spectrum goes from I'd like to hear more to go away. Generally, we try to go for the people who say, I'd like to hear more.
Now, meanwhile, while all of this stuff is happening, there is also the national campaign occurring at the same time. Because while people like Michael and Nick are obviously important in their own way, a Canadian election is ultimately a contest to pick a prime minister, so a lot of the most aggressive campaigning is done by the party bosses who are running for that job. So the party bosses hold all sorts of rallies and run ads on TV and have debates with each other, and sometimes they get completely destroyed by unexpected media bombshells.
Is the third image of him within about 12 hours that has come out.
Yes, for you see, I have been working on this video for a week, and I can honestly say that I did not expect that the first week of the Canadian election would be derailed by news that the Prime Minister has repeatedly worn blackface. Now, my suspicion is that Trudeau will survive this, just like that governor in Virginia, and we'll all be talking about something else within a couple of days. But as I film this, it is still very much the biggest story in the entire world, which is a good example of just how fluid and unpredictable elections can be. You have hundreds of men and women running these tidy little campaigns all across the country, all very convinced that they know what Canadian politics is all about. And then, bam! Something like this comes along and completely discombobulates everything. Anyway, I hope you enjoyed this video and hopefully learned a couple of things from it. Let me know in the comments what kind of content you would like to see in future election-themed videos. Alright, see you next week. Blackface.